There are moments that break you, moments that remake you, and moments when you realize you were always stronger than the men who tried to destroy you. This is the story of one of those moments. At a federal courtroom, a man in an orange prison jumpsuit sat in handcuffs, his once powerful frame diminished by the weight of his crimes. The judge's gavel crashed down like thunder. Justice had arrived, and it wore the face of a woman everyone had underestimated. The evidence boards told a story of lies, financial documents marked in blood-red ink, FBI raids, tearful victims, and one name that connected it all, Jackson Whitmore. And then came the voice that changed everything. The voice of the woman he thought he'd destroyed 3 years ago. She stood before the court, calm and unshakable, and said the words that would begin her reckoning. It started with 5 words in a restaurant. Before we dive into this incredible story, do me a quick favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story has more twists than you can imagine, and you won't want to miss what happens next. 8 months earlier, Olivia Brennan was invisible. 3 years of hiding had reduced a financial genius to a waitress serving champagne to men who would have once begged for her advice. 3 years of swallowing rage. 3 years of planning. On that Thursday night in November, she walked into Pinnacle Steakhouse carrying more than just drink orders. She carried 3 years of evidence on an encrypted hard drive in her backpack. 3 years of tracking patterns. 3 years of finding victims. And tonight, she'd found victim number 12. Nathan Cross sat at table 14 with 8 executives celebrating a $60 billion merger. They were loud, drunk on power and expensive wine. Tomorrow they would sign the deal that would crown Cross the king of artificial intelligence. They had no idea tomorrow would never come. Cross snapped his fingers at her without looking up. She was furniture to him. Less than furniture. His nephew Trevor mocked her intelligence, compared her minimum wage job to minimum brain cells. The whole table erupted in cruel laughter. Someone pulled out a phone to record the humiliation. Then Cross decided to make it a game. He asked her a question designed to embarrass her, to prove she was too stupid to understand their world. He asked what the biggest red flag in a $60 billion acquisition was. He expected silence. Stammering. Maybe tears. He got something else entirely. Her voice came out quiet, steady, and absolutely devastating. She told him he was buying his own companies. Quantum Core, Neural Dynamics, Apex Intelligence, all the same owner, hidden behind 14 layers of fake corporations. He wasn't acquiring competitors. He was orchestrating fraud on a massive scale. And when the FBI figured it out, he wouldn't just lose $60 billion. He'd lose his freedom. The laughter died instantly. Brian Montgomery, the CFO, went pale and dropped his glass. Champagne spread across the white tablecloth like spilled blood. Then Olivia's eyes moved deliberately across the restaurant to table 9. A silver-haired man sat alone, watching the scene unfold with cold satisfaction. Jackson Whitmore. 62 years old, impeccably dressed, radiating the kind of confidence that comes from decades of getting away with crimes. He raised his wine glass toward Olivia, a mocking salute. Cross demanded to know who she was. And Olivia told him the truth that would change everything. She was someone who recognized Whitmore's signature because he had done this exact same thing to her 3 years ago. She was the woman Whitmore had framed, destroyed, and assumed would stay destroyed. She was wrong about staying destroyed. Nathan Cross shot to his feet. The chair crashed backward. Every person in that expensive restaurant turned to stare as one of the most powerful men in tech demanded she follow him to his car immediately. She had 60 seconds to prove her story, or he'd have her arrested and personally see the restaurant shut down. But as Olivia turned and walked toward the exit, something had already shifted. The power Cross thought belonged to him had quietly changed hands. And across the restaurant, Jackson Whitmore stopped smiling. Because he'd just realized the woman he destroyed 3 years ago had survived. She'd come back. And she'd been planning this moment for 1,095 days. This is the story of Olivia Brennan, or the woman she used to be. Welcome to Letters of the Heart, where we bring you the most compelling true stories of justice, revenge, and redemption. If you love dramatic storytelling that keeps you on the edge of your seat, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell so you never miss a story. And while you're here, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Now, let's get back to Olivia's story, because what happens next will change everything. To understand what happened in that restaurant, you need to understand who Olivia Brennan used to be. And more importantly, who destroyed her. 7 years earlier, Olivia was 24 years old and brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant in a way that made Wall Street executives twice her age uncomfortable. She saw patterns in financial data that others missed. She could predict market movements 3 steps ahead. And Jackson Whitmore noticed. He recruited her personally to Vanguard Capital Partners in Manhattan. Offered her triple what any other firm would pay. Told her she reminded him of his daughter, brilliant, driven, destined for greatness. His daughter Sarah had died young, he said. Cancer. He'd give anything to see what she could have become. Olivia believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was a legend. 30 years in finance. Never lost. Never failed. And he treated her like family. For 18 months, they worked late nights in his corner office overlooking Manhattan. He taught her his proprietary algorithms, complex systems for predicting market movements and identifying fraud. He called her his protégé. His successor. The daughter he'd lost. She wasn't alone in her success. Derek Mitchell, a colleague and her closest friend, worked alongside her. Together they were building something revolutionary, fraud detection software that could identify shell corporations and fake ownership structures in seconds. Software that could have changed everything. Software that Jackson Whitmore couldn't allow to exist. Because while Olivia thought she was learning from a mentor, she was actually being studied. Profiled. Prepared. Whitmore was building a perfect scapegoat. 3 years ago, everything shattered. The FBI came at dawn. Olivia woke to boots thundering up her apartment stairs, fists pounding on her door, voices shouting her name. She opened the door in pajamas, confused, terrified. They arrested her for insider trading. $300 million stolen over 18 months. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital signatures with her credentials. Encrypted emails sent from her computer. Offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands with her name on them. Wire transfers she didn't remember making but couldn't deny, the timestamps, the IP addresses, everything pointed directly to her. Derek disappeared that same night. His apartment was empty by morning. His phone went dead. His family claimed they hadn't heard from him. To this day, Olivia didn't know if he was dead, hiding, or if Whitmore had turned him too. The not knowing was almost worse than everything else. The trial lasted 4 months. Whitmore testified against her. Called her brilliant but unstable. Said he'd noticed irregularities but trusted her too much to investigate. Played the heartbroken mentor who'd been betrayed by the woman he'd treated like a daughter. The jury believed him. Of course they did. He was Jackson Whitmore, legend, philanthropist, the man who'd never lost. She was just a 28-year-old analyst who got too greedy too fast. She was convicted. Facing 20 years in federal prison. But 3 days before sentencing, Olivia ran. She couldn't sit in a cell for crimes she didn't commit while Whitmore walked free. So she disappeared into a country of 300 million people and became someone else. 6 months later, her mother died. Heart attack. Olivia watched the funeral from behind a tree across the street at Oakland Cemetery, rain soaking through her coat. She couldn't risk being seen. Couldn't risk saying goodbye. She watched them lower her mother into the ground and walked away before anyone noticed the woman crying alone in the rain. That was the day Olivia Brennan truly died. And Elena Grant was born. For 3 years, she was Elena Grant. A nobody. A ghost. She lived in a studio apartment in Chicago's Logan Square with community college transcripts under a fake name. She worked as a waitress, a barista, a retail clerk, any job that paid cash and didn't ask questions. She moved every 6 months because staying anywhere longer felt dangerous. She slept with the lights on because darkness brought nightmares of prison cells and her mother's grave. But she wasn't just surviving. She was hunting. The encrypted hard drive in her backpack held 3 years of evidence. Bank records. Shell Corporation filings. Patterns. She tracked Whitmore's movements, identified his victims, found the people he'd destroyed before her. 11 others. 2 had committed suicide. 9 were hiding just like her. She'd found them all. And they'd given her everything. But on this November evening, hiding was no longer an option. Because Jackson Whitmore wasn't just destroying Nathan Cross. He was perfecting the system he'd used on her. And if she didn't stop him now, victim number 12 would end up exactly where she'd been 3 years ago, broken, alone, and erased from existence. Nathan Cross's Tesla raced through downtown Chicago, weaving between late-night traffic. The city lights blurred past the windows. In the passenger seat, Olivia pulled out a tablet and started showing him everything. 3 companies. Quantum Core, Neural Dynamics, Apex Intelligence. On paper, they were competitors, 3 different AI firms with different CEOs, different boards, different investors. Cross was paying $60 billion to acquire all 3 and dominate the artificial intelligence market. But Olivia showed him the truth hidden underneath. Same ultimate beneficial owners. Same law firm in Wyoming setting up the LLCs, same registered agent in the Cayman Islands handling the offshore accounts. Same accountant in Delaware filing the paperwork. The ownership structure was buried under 14 layers of shell corporations, trusts, and holding companies, but if you knew what to look for, the pattern was unmistakable. Cross wasn't buying his competitors. He was buying companies he already secretly controlled. The $60 billion he was about to pay would disappear into offshore accounts that led right back to the same source. And when the SEC eventually figured it out, and they would figure it out, Cross would take the fall. His empire would collapse. His freedom would end. And Jackson Whitmore would walk away $60 billion richer. Cross's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His voice came out strained, desperate. Why should he trust her? She was a fugitive. A convicted criminal. For all he knew, this was a con. Olivia's response was simple and devastating. She could prove Whitmore had done this before. 11 times over 17 years. She'd found every victim. Tracked every scheme. 2 of them were dead now, officially ruled suicides, but Olivia knew better. 9 others were in hiding, just like she'd been, too terrified to come forward because Whitmore's reach extended into the FBI, the SEC, the Justice Department itself. But she'd found them all. And they'd given her everything. Bank records. Digital evidence. Testimony. Patterns that proved Whitmore wasn't just a one-time criminal, he was a serial predator who'd been operating for nearly 2 decades. Cross pulled the car over. Sat in silence for a long moment. Then asked the question that changed everything. What did she want? That's when Cross revealed something even Olivia hadn't known. Something that made everything so much worse. It wasn't just $60 billion. It was $120 billion. To fund the acquisition, Cross was simultaneously divesting from 3 other major holdings, selling off assets, liquidating investments. His entire company, Sterling Technologies, 12,000 employees, 20 years of building, was leveraged on this single deal. If the deal closed and the fraud was discovered, Sterling wouldn't just lose $60 billion. The company would go bankrupt. 12,000 people would lose their jobs. Retirement funds would evaporate. Families would be destroyed. And Cross himself would face federal prosecution for participating in the largest corporate fraud in American history. They had 96 hours until the Friday midnight signing deadline. For days to stop Jackson Whitmore or watch everything burn. The Tesla pulled into Sterling Tower's underground garage. They took the private elevator to the penthouse office. That's when Rebecca Cross walked in. 28 years old, VP of Strategic Operations, designer suit, and an expression that could cut glass. She took one look at Olivia and exploded. Her father had lost his mind. This woman was a fugitive. The FBI had an active warrant. There was a whole file. She pulled it up on her phone, shoved it in his face. Olivia's photo. Wanted for securities fraud. Bringing her here wasn't just insane. It was corporate suicide. And Rebecca wouldn't let her father destroy everything they'd built. But Cross didn't back down. Neither did Olivia. She agreed to help, but she had conditions. Non-negotiable. Full legal immunity in writing. Access to Cross's legal team to clear her name. And one more thing, he had to help her find Derek Mitchell, the partner who'd disappeared 3 years ago. Cross agreed. But he set his own terms. 96 hours. 4 days. Prove everything by Friday at midnight, or he'd hand her to the FBI himself and sign the deal that would destroy his company. The clock started ticking. Can you believe what just happened? Olivia went from serving coffee to having 96 hours to take down a billionaire fraud scheme. If you're hooked on this story, smash that like button right now. And here's a question for you. Would you have taken Nathan Cross's offer, or walked away? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's see what happens when she starts digging into those files. What they didn't know, Jackson Whitmore wasn't working alone. And his inside agent was already in that room, watching everything unfold. 11 p.m. Sterling Technologies' war room on the 42nd floor. Olivia walked in and immediately started cataloging faces. After 3 years of hiding, reading people had become survival instinct. And what she saw in that room told her everything she needed to know about the battle ahead. Patricia Lawson, head of risk assessment. 45 years old, designer glasses, perfectly tailored suit. Cold efficiency radiated off her like frost. She didn't look up when Olivia entered. Didn't acknowledge her presence. That told Olivia 2 things. Patricia already knew who she was, and Patricia was hiding something. Gerald Hammond, Chief Financial Officer. 52, expensive watch, nervous energy that made his leg bounce under the conference table. His eyes kept darting to his phone. Checking messages. Waiting for instructions. He was compromised. Olivia could see it in every anxious movement. Maya Torres, junior analyst. 26, eager eyes, leaning forward like she was afraid to miss a single word. She looked at Olivia with something close to hero worship. Young. Idealistic. Exactly the kind of person people like Patricia exploited. And then there was David Chen. Security chief. 40 years old, former military bearing, observant eyes that missed nothing. He was the only person in that room who looked at Olivia and saw a person instead of a problem. When their eyes met, he gave the slightest nod. He would be her only ally in this room. She could feel it. The investigation started at 11:47 p.m. Olivia needed access to Sterling's secure financial database, The kind of access that required biometric clearance and security protocols most people couldn't bypass. But David Chen quietly disabled 3 security checkpoints and gave her an executive-level access card without saying a word. He understood. She didn't need to explain. Olivia's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up Quantum Core's financial records. She started with the basics: revenue streams, patent portfolios, research and development spending. Within 20 minutes, she found the first crack in the facade. The patents didn't exist. Not really. Quantum Core claimed to own revolutionary AI technology worth billions. The patents were filed, registered, looked legitimate on paper. But when Olivia dug into the actual technology behind them, she found nothing. Vaporware. Fake innovations described in just enough technical language to sound real but with no actual working prototypes, no research data, no peer review. The entire company was built on technology that didn't exist. And Cross was about to pay $20 billion for it. Neural Dynamics was supposed to be Quantum Core's biggest competitor. Different CEO, different board of directors, different headquarters in Austin instead of San Francisco. On the surface, completely separate companies. But Olivia knew how to look beneath surfaces. She pulled up the board member profiles. Different names, but the faces looked familiar. She ran them through reverse image search. Found LinkedIn profiles, old corporate headshots, archived news articles. Same people. Different names. David Morrison in San Francisco was also known as Daniel Moretti in Austin. Jennifer Park was also Jessica Palmer. 5 board members, all using aliases. Then she found the registered agent. Same law firm in Cheyenne, Wyoming handling the corporate filings. Same accountant in Delaware processing the paperwork. Neural Dynamics wasn't a competitor. It was a sister company. And Cross was paying another $25 billion for it. Apex Intelligence was the third company. The crown jewel. $15 billion. The one that would give Cross total dominance in artificial intelligence. Olivia pulled up their files and hit a wall. Military-grade encryption. Not corporate security, government level. NSA-level security protecting financial records that should have been straightforward corporate documents. Someone very powerful had locked these files down tight. She tried 17 different bypass methods. Nothing worked. Whoever built this encryption knew exactly what they were doing. And they knew someone would eventually come looking. That's when her hands started shaking. It came without warning, the trembling that started in her fingers and spread up her arms. Her breath caught. The room suddenly felt too small, the walls too close. PTSD from the FBI raid 3 years ago, still living in her nervous system like a poison she couldn't purge. David noticed immediately. He didn't say anything. Just quietly set a bottle of water next to her keyboard and positioned himself at the door. Standing guard. Protecting her space while she pulled herself back together. In 3 years, he was the first person to show her simple human kindness without asking for anything in return. But Apex Intelligence's files were different. Government-level encryption. NSA-grade security. Someone very powerful was protecting these secrets. And that someone was about to walk through the door. The next morning, the war room filled with tension thick enough to choke on. Olivia sat at the head of the conference table, laptop open, deliberately showing screens full of dead ends and error messages. She let frustration show on her face. Let her shoulders slump. Played the part of someone who'd hit a wall and didn't know how to get past it. Patricia Lawson watched from across the table with barely concealed satisfaction. Problems? Patricia's voice was ice-cold politeness. Olivia shook her head, kept her eyes on the screen. Just, the encryption on Apex Intelligence is more complex than I expected. Interesting. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Some of us have been analyzing this acquisition for 6 months. We've been over every file, every document, every financial projection. Maybe you're not as smart as everyone seems to think you are. There it was. The arrogance that always came before the fall. Olivia looked up slowly. You're right. I'm probably not as smart as you. She tapped a few keys. Which is why I spent last night looking at something simpler. Like your bank accounts. Patricia's face went blank. The screen behind Olivia lit up with wire transfer records. Meridian Digital Consulting, a shell company registered in Delaware, had paid Patricia Lawson $340,000 over 6 months. 20 payments. Every other Tuesday. Like clockwork. Patricia's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Your biometric access is still active, Olivia said quietly. Sterling never revoked it. So you're going to unlock the restricted files right now. Or I'm going to show Nathan Cross how you've been sabotaging his due diligence reports for half a year. Patricia's hands were shaking now. She tried to stand, tried to leave, but David Chin was already at the door, blocking her exit. She had no choice. She pressed her thumb to the scanner, typed her password, and the restricted files opened like a floodgate. Inside were 6 months of deliberately falsified risk assessments. Red flags marked as green lights. Warning signs erased. Due diligence reports rewritten to hide obvious problems. Patricia hadn't just been taking bribes. She'd been actively helping someone destroy Sterling Technologies from the inside. Security escorted her out in handcuffs. And as the door closed behind her, Maya Torres started to cry. Maya was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I didn't know, she kept saying, over and over. I swear I didn't know. Olivia moved to sit beside her. Kept her voice gentle. What didn't you know, Maya? The story came out in broken pieces. Patricia had recruited Maya 6 months ago. Told her she was being promoted to a special project, helping protect Sterling from corporate espionage. Said there were spies inside the company trying to sabotage the acquisition. Maya's job was simple: report everything she heard in meetings. Every concern raised. Every question asked. Every document reviewed. Maya thought she was protecting the company. She had no idea she was helping sabotage it. She kept saying he'll be here soon, Maya whispered, wiping her eyes. During phone calls. Like she was waiting for someone. Someone important. Olivia's blood went cold. Who? I don't know. But she met with someone every week. Off-site. Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. At that coffee shop on Franklin Street. Who did she meet with? Maya hesitated. Then said the name that confirmed Olivia's worst fear. Gerald Hammond. The CFO. As if summoned, Gerald Hammond walked through the war room door at exactly that moment. He saw the screens. Saw Patricia's arrest records displayed. Saw Maya crying. His face went from confused to terrified in about 3 seconds. What's happening? His voice cracked. Olivia stood slowly. You approved every fraudulent audit. Every falsified risk assessment. Every document Patricia modified to hide the fraud. Your signature is on all of it, Gerald. I don't know what you're talking about. But here's what's interesting, Olivia continued. You weren't working with Patricia. You were working directly for Jackson Whitmore. And you didn't even know she was involved. He kept you separated. Compartmentalized. So neither of you knew the other was compromised. Gerald's phone started ringing. Everyone in the room looked at the screen. Caller ID, J. Whitmore. Olivia's voice came out cold. Don't answer it. Or do. Either way, he knows I'm here now. The phone rang 10 times. 20. 30. Then stopped. The silence was more terrifying than any sound. Olivia looked at Cross. He's coming to Chicago. Tonight. Rebecca Cross had been quiet for 2 days. Too quiet. And when she finally walked into the war room at midnight, she wasn't coming as an ally. She was coming as a prosecutor. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steel. Alone. They moved to Cross's private office. Rebecca closed the door and pulled out her laptop. When she turned the screen toward Olivia, every muscle in Olivia's body went tense. Bank transfers. Offshore accounts. Encrypted email chains. Digital signatures with Olivia's credentials. Every piece of evidence from her 2021 conviction, laid out in perfect detail. "I've been running my own investigation," Rebecca said coldly. "Not into the acquisition. Into you." Olivia said nothing. Just stared at the evidence that had destroyed her life 3 years ago. "These are real," Rebecca continued. "The bank transfers are real. The digital signatures are authenticated. The offshore accounts existed. The FBI didn't just make this up, Olivia. This evidence convicted you. So explain to me, how do I know you're not the criminal? How do I know you're not conning my father right now to get revenge on the system that caught you?" It was a fair question. The evidence looked airtight. It always had. That was the whole problem. Olivia could have argued. Could have tried to explain digital forgery and credential theft in sophisticated frame-ups. But technical explanations wouldn't change Rebecca's mind. So instead, she told the truth. "You're right to question me," Olivia said quietly. "You should question me. You'd be stupid not to." Rebecca blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. 3 years ago, nobody questioned Jackson Whitmore, Olivia continued. He was a legend. 30 years in finance, never lost, never failed. So when he said I was guilty, people believed him. Not because the evidence was perfect. Because he had power and I didn't. She took a breath. Steadied herself. 6 months after my conviction, my mother died. Heart attack. I was living in Detroit under a fake name, working night shifts at a gas station. I drove 9 hours to Oakland for her funeral. But I couldn't go inside. Couldn't risk being seen. So I stood across the street, behind a tree, in the rain. And I watched them lower my mother into the ground. I never got to say goodbye. Never got to tell her I was innocent. Never got to tell her I loved her. Her voice cracked. She died thinking her daughter was a criminal. Rebecca's expression shifted. The steel in her eyes softened into something that looked like pain. "My mother died when I was 16, Rebecca said quietly. Brain aneurysm. One day she was fine. Next day she was gone. Dad threw himself into work. Worked 18-hour days. I think he couldn't handle being home without her. So he wasn't. And I learned what it feels like to lose someone and never get closure." The silence between them shifted. Not enemies anymore. Not quite allies yet. But something in between. 2 women who understood loss. "What do you need?" Rebecca asked. Olivia had been waiting for this question. Someone Whitmore doesn't know is involved. Someone who can access Apex intelligence from the inside. Someone he won't see coming. "That's why the encryption is government level," Rebecca said, understanding dawning. "He knows you'd look into the other companies. But Apex is different. He's protecting it. And if we don't crack it, we can't prove the full conspiracy." Rebecca pulled out her phone. Started typing. "My father has board access to Apex as part of the acquisition agreement. I can use his credentials without anyone knowing. That's illegal. So was framing you. Rebecca's smile was sharp. I'll be your ghost. We're halfway through this incredible story, and if you're still watching, you're probably as invested as I am. Quick reminder, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. This channel brings you stories like this every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. Comment Team Olivia if you're rooting for her to expose Whitmore. Now, let's see what happens at this midnight meeting. But 3 miles away, Jackson Whitmore sat in his Peninsula Hotel suite, unpacking his suitcase and smiling. He'd been planning this confrontation for 3 years. The encrypted email arrived at 2:17 a.m. Olivia's burner phone buzzed. She grabbed it off the nightstand, eyes still half closed, expecting spam or a wrong number. Instead, she saw a message that made her heart stop. Olivia. I'm alive. I have evidence you need. But Whitmore knows I contacted you. Meet me at Northwestern Computer Lab, where we built the program together. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone. Trust no one else. D. Derek. Derek Mitchell. Her partner. Her friend. The man who disappeared 3 years ago, the same night the FBI raided her apartment. For 3 years she hadn't known if he was dead, hiding, or working for Whitmore. For 3 years that question had haunted her nightmares. Now, suddenly, an answer. But was it real? Or was it the trap it obviously looked like? She stared at the message for 5 full minutes, reading it over and over, looking for clues. The computer lab at Northwestern, that was real. They'd built their fraud detection software there, spent hundreds of late nights writing code. Only Derek would know that detail. But Whitmore could have tortured that information out of him. Could have Derek's phone. Could be using Derek as bait. The signature, D. Derek always signed messages that way. Always. Even emails to professors, to colleagues, to her. Just D. That felt authentic. But again, Whitmore could have learned that from Derek's email history. There was no way to know for certain. And that was exactly the point. Whitmore wanted her uncertain. Wanted her desperate enough to take the risk. She showed the message to Cross, Rebecca, and David at 8 a.m. Cross's response was immediate. Absolutely not. It's obviously a trap. Obviously, Olivia agreed. Then why are we even discussing this? Because Derek might actually be alive. Because he might actually have evidence. Because abandoning him felt like abandoning the last piece of who she used to be. Rebecca leaned forward, studying the message. What if it's real? What if Derek actually has evidence we can't get any other way? We still haven't cracked Apex Intelligence's encryption. If Derek has information from inside Whitmore's operation, then Whitmore will use him to get to Olivia, Cross finished. Which is exactly what this is. David had been silent, but now he spoke. If it is Derek, he's already compromised. Whitmore found him. Threatened him. Forced him to send this message. So even if you don't go, Derek's in danger. And if she does go, Cross said, Whitmore kills them both. The logic was sound. The smart play was staying away. Let Derek handle his own situation. Don't risk everything they'd built. But Olivia had spent 3 years running. 3 years hiding. 3 years letting fear make her decisions. She was done running. I'm going, she said quietly. Because if there's even a 1% chance Derek is alive and needs help, I owe him that. We were partners. Friends. He disappeared the same night I did. If Whitmore hurt him to get to me, then I'm the reason he's been suffering. I can't leave him there. Cross started to argue, but Rebecca cut him off. Then we go with you. Full security team. Backup plans. We don't let you walk into this alone. The message says come alone. "The message is from a man who's trying to trap you," Rebecca shot back. "We're not letting you die because," Derek asked nicely. Northwestern University's computer science building at midnight looked like something from a horror movie. Dark windows. Empty parking lot. One flickering light over the entrance. Olivia walked in alone. Or at least, she looked alone. David and Cross's security team were positioned at every exit, invisible but ready. The computer lab was on the 3rd floor. Room 347. The same room where she and Derek had spent 2 years building software that could have changed everything. She pushed the door open. The room was pitch black. "Derek?" Movement in the shadows. A figure stepped forward, and even in the darkness she recognized him. Thinner. Older. Terrified. "But Derek." "Olivia." His voice shook. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "What happened?" "I've been in Vancouver for 3 years. Working under a fake name. Hiding just like you. Whitmore's people found me Tuesday. Showed up at my apartment with guns and photos of my sister Jenna. He gave me a choice: bring you here tonight, or they kill her." Olivia's heart sank. "Derek. I know it's a trap. I know. But Jenna's all I have left." That's when the lights blazed on. Blinding. White hot. Whitmore's security team poured in from every door. 6 men. Guns drawn. Surrounding them. But Olivia was smiling. "I know," she said calmly. "That's why I didn't come alone." The opposite doors burst open. David Chen and Cross's security team flooded in, weapons drawn, outnumbering Whitmore's people 2 to 1. And Derek's phone, sitting on the desk, screen glowing, had been live streaming the entire conversation directly to the FBI's cybercrime division. Every word Whitmore's team had said. Every threat. Every admission of kidnapping and conspiracy. Then Jackson Whitmore himself stepped through the door. "Did you really think I'd fall for something that simple? Derek's sister is already dead. And the FBI? I own them. It's over, Olivia." Jackson Whitmore didn't rush. Didn't storm in like a villain from a movie. He walked slowly, calmly, like a man arriving at a dinner party he'd been planning for months. He looked exactly as Olivia remembered. Silver hair perfectly styled. $10,000 suit. Confidence that came from 30 years of getting away with crimes. His eyes found Olivia immediately. "Still dressing like you serve coffee," he said, voice smooth as silk. "I taught you better than that. Image matters, Olivia. First rule of power." Then he turned to Nathan Cross, who'd followed his security team in. "Nathan. Pleasure to finally meet face to face. I see you brought security." He gestured to his own team. "I brought lawyers. Mine cost more." Derek was trembling, tears streaming down his face. "My sister is dead," Whitmore said casually. "Died 6 hours ago. Car accident. Very tragic. These things happen when people don't cooperate." Derek collapsed. Literally fell to his knees, sobbing. Olivia felt rage burn through her like fire. But she kept her voice steady. "The FBI has everything. The live stream. Your confession. Do they?" Whitmore pulled out his phone, tapped a few buttons. "Because according to my sources, that stream was interrupted by a very convenient technical malfunction approximately 90 seconds after it started. Equipment failure. Nothing recorded. Very unfortunate." He'd known. The whole time, he'd known about the stream and had people ready to kill it. "You can't keep doing this," Olivia said. "Can I?" Whitmore walked to the vending machine, bought a coffee like this was a casual business meeting. I've been doing this for 32 years, Olivia. You really think you're the first person to try stopping me? Whitmore sat down on a desk, sipping his vending machine coffee like he had all the time in the world. Let me tell you a story, he said. 1997, my daughter Sarah was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. 7 years old. Beautiful. Brilliant. Had her whole life ahead of her. He paused. For just a moment, something that looked like genuine pain crossed his face. The treatment existed. Experimental. Aggressive. 90% cure rate if we started immediately. Cost, $2.4 million. My insurance covered exactly zero. My salary at the time, $160,000 per year. I was a mid-level analyst. Good at my job. Not great. Certainly not wealthy. He took another sip of coffee. So I made one illegal trade. Just one. Borrowed $80,000 from a client's account. Put it into a stock I knew was about to explode. Made $200,000 in 3 days. Returned the $80,000. Kept the profit. Used it as down payment for Sarah's treatment. The room was silent. Everyone listening. Sarah got her treatment. 6 months of hell. Chemo. Radiation. Clinical trials. She was so brave. Never complained. Just kept fighting. Whitmore's voice dropped. She died anyway. 6 months later. The day before her 8th birthday. He looked directly at Olivia. And by then, I'd already become this. Made 27 illegal trades to pay for her treatment. Destroyed 3 people's careers to cover my tracks. Crossed lines I couldn't uncross. Sarah was gone. And I was a monster. But I was a very rich monster. So I kept going. He stood. You reminded me of her. Brilliant. Idealistic. Full of potential. Doomed by a system that protects the wealthy and crushes everyone else. When I mentored you, part of me genuinely wanted to save you from becoming like me. But the bigger part, the monster part, saw opportunity. You were perfect. Young enough to be credible as a criminal. Smart enough to have actually pulled off the crimes. Trusting enough to give me access to everything I needed to frame you. Olivia felt sick. So you destroyed me because I reminded you of your dead daughter? I destroyed you because you were useful, Whitmore said simply. The emotional connection just made it easier to get close to you. Whitmore pulled a document from his jacket pocket. Set it on the desk. This is my resignation letter, he said. Effective immediately. I'm retiring. I'm 67 years old. Even if you somehow prove every single allegation, even if the FBI actually arrests me, even if I'm convicted, which I won't be, I'll die of old age before I see a prison cell. The courts are slow. Appeals take years. I have the best lawyers money can buy. He smiled. The deal closes in 72 hours. Nathan signs. I get my $40 billion payout, and I disappear to a country with no extradition. You lose. Again. Just like you lost 3 years ago. Just like you've always been destined to lose. Cross looked ready to explode. You arrogant. Realistic, Whitmore interrupted. There's a difference. Rebecca Cross stepped forward, laptop in hand. Except you're not 67. Whitmore's smile faltered. Just slightly. What? Rebecca turned her laptop screen toward him. Jackson Whitmore isn't your real name. You're Jackson Whitley. Changed it in 1994 after insurance fraud in Texas. You're 71 years old. And you've been to prison before, 19 months in federal custody, released in 1995. Whitmore's face went from confident to shocked to enraged in about 3 seconds. And there's no daughter named Sarah, Rebecca continued. You had a son. Michael Whitley. Who's still alive. And who happens to be the CEO of Apex Intelligence, the company with government-level encryption. Your son has been protecting your secrets. Did you catch that twist? Whitmore isn't who he claimed to be. If this story is blowing your mind, show some love by hitting that like button. We're entering the final confrontation now, and things are about to get intense. Share this video with someone who loves justice stories, they'll thank you later. Let's see how Olivia uses that hard drive she's been carrying for 3 years. Whitmore's face transformed. The charm vanished. Pure rage remained. He pulled out his phone. One call and Nathan's car explodes. I've had it rigged since Monday. Whitmore's finger hovered over his phone screen. One button. One call. One explosion. Wait, Olivia said. Begging now? Whitmore's voice dripped with satisfaction. That's new. Not begging. Giving you one chance to walk away. Whitmore laughed. Actually laughed. With what leverage? You have nothing. The FBI stream is dead. Derek's sister is dead. You're a fugitive with zero credibility. And in about 30 seconds, Nathan Cross is going to be dead too. Then his daughter. Then your little security friend. Then you. I've already won, Olivia. This is just the cleanup. Olivia reached into her backpack. Pulled out the encrypted hard drive she'd been carrying for 3 years. Whitmore's laughter died. This, Olivia said quietly, is 3 years of evidence. Every victim you destroyed. Every crime you committed. Every lie you told. Backed up in 7 different locations, set to auto-release to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency if I don't enter a password every 12 hours. That's from 2019, Whitmore said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Old news. Irrelevant. Is it? Olivia plugged the drive into Rebecca's laptop. The screen behind them lit up with file directories. Thousands of files. Organized by year. 2019, Olivia said, clicking a folder. Financial records filled the screen. That's when you framed me. But here's 2015. Another folder. When you framed Michael Torres. He killed himself 6 months later. His daughter was 9. Whitmore's hand was shaking now. Here's 2011. Catherine Brooks. Still in hiding in New Zealand. Here's 2007. David Park. Found dead in his apartment. Officially ruled suicide. Here's 2003. Jennifer Zhao. Still alive. Living in Singapore under a fake name. Gave me everything. She clicked through folder after folder. Each one a life destroyed. A career ended. A person erased. 17 years of identical frauds. 11 victims before me. 2 dead. 9 hiding. But I found them all. Every single one. And they gave me their evidence. Bank records. Emails. Testimony. Proof that you've been running the same con for nearly 2 decades. The screen behind Olivia became a wall of evidence. Faces of victims. Financial transactions. Shell Corporation documents. A web of crimes so vast it took up the entire display. Whitmore stared at it like he was seeing a ghost. Multiple ghosts. All the people he thought he'd erased, staring back at him. You didn't just frame me, Olivia said. You built an entire system. A network. Patricia Lawson, she was your first victim. 1998, you framed her, then offered her a deal, work for you or go to prison. She's been compromising companies from the inside for 27 years. She clicked to another file. Gerald Hammond. You compromised him 5 years ago. Caught him in securities fraud, offered him the same choice. Work for you or lose everything. Maya Torres, you used her without her even knowing. Fed her lies through Patricia. Made her your unknowing accomplice. And your son Michael. You've had him running Apex Intelligence as a front company for 8 years. Made him CEO of a fake corporation built on your crimes. Whitmore's phone dropped from his hand. Clattered on the floor. I found them all, Olivia said. Every victim. Every accomplice. Every crime. And they all gave me everything. Because they were all waiting for someone brave enough to bring you down. The door opened. A man in his early 40s walked in. Exhausted. Worn down. But his face was identical to the one Olivia had seen in Whitmore's old family photos. Michael Whitley. The son who supposedly didn't exist. Michael, Whitmore said, his voice almost desperate. Thank God. Help me get. No. The word landed like a bomb. What? I said no. Michael's voice was hollow. Empty. I'm done, Dad. Son, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Michael walked to the center of the room, looked at the evidence wall behind Olivia. His face showed no surprise. Just resignation. I've understood for 8 years. Since the day you made me CEO of Apex. Since the day I realized my entire career was a lie built on your fraud. His voice cracked. I'm not Sarah. I didn't die. But you killed me anyway when you turned me into this. He gestured at his suit, his life, everything he'd become. I'm the CEO of a fake company. My technology doesn't work. My patents are fraudulent. My investors are shell corporations you control. My entire professional existence is a crime I didn't even know I was committing. He looked at Olivia. What do you need from me? The government encryption on Apex's files. That was you protecting Company C. I'll unlock everything, Michael said. Every file. Every secret. Everything he's been hiding. Whitmore's face went white. Not with fear. With pure, incandescent rage. You're all dead. Every single one of you. He pressed the button on his phone. Whitmore pressed the button. Everyone braced for an explosion. For Nathan Cross's car in the parking garage to erupt in flames. For the entire building to shake. Nothing happened. Silence. Whitmore pressed the button again. And again. Nothing. David Chin stepped forward, holding up a small battery. Looking for this? Whitmore's face went pale. We found your explosive Monday afternoon, David said calmly. C4, commercial grade, rigged to the fuel line. Decent work. Not great. You got sloppy. Probably because you're so arrogant you assumed nobody would check. Whitmore lunged at David. Actually tried to attack him physically, like violence would somehow solve this. David sidestepped easily. Whitmore hit the floor. 2 security guards tackled him before he could get back up. He was screaming now. Actual incoherent screaming. The mask of civility completely shattered. The monster underneath fully exposed. The doors burst open. FBI agents poured in, guns drawn, body armor, the full tactical response. 8 agents. 10. 12. The room flooded with law enforcement. Lead Agent Torres stepped forward, weapon aimed at the center of the room. Olivia Brennan, he shouted. You're under arrest for. Nathan Cross stepped between Torres and Olivia. Agent Torres. I'm Nathan Cross. And you're arresting the wrong person today. Torres didn't lower his weapon. Mr. Cross, with all due respect, We have an active warrant. Rebecca held up her laptop. Agent Torres. Check your secure email. Message sent 30 seconds ago. Torres gestured to another agent, who pulled out a phone. Checked. His face went pale. Who sent this? Torres demanded. The Attorney General of the United States, Rebecca said calmly. She's been CC'd on everything for the last 6 hours. Every piece of evidence we've gathered. Every crime we've uncovered. Every victim testimony. She's been watching this entire operation in real time. She turned the laptop to show the video feed, a secure conference call with the Attorney General's office, DOJ prosecutors, and FBI brass all watching from Washington. Olivia Brennan's charges are dropped, Rebecca continued. All federal warrants are being recalled as we speak. And Jackson Whitmore's charges are extensive. 32 counts of securities fraud. 17 counts of identity theft. 12 counts of conspiracy. 11 counts of witness tampering. 6 counts of attempted murder. And that's just for starters. Torres slowly lowered his weapon. Turned to Whitmore, still screaming on the floor. Jackson Whitmore, you're under arrest. 2 FBI agents pulled Whitmore to his feet. Read him his rights while he struggled and cursed. He looked at Olivia one last time. The rage had faded into something else. Something that might have been respect. Or maybe just exhaustion. You think you've won, he said, voice hoarse. You have no idea what's coming. This is bigger than me. Bigger than you. You just made enemies you can't even imagine. Olivia stepped close to him. Close enough that only he could hear her next words. You took 3 years of my life, she said quietly. You took my career. My reputation. My freedom. You made me miss my mother's funeral. You turned me into someone who jumps at shadows and can't sleep without lights on. You destroyed me. She paused. Now you'll give 40 years of yours. And you'll do it in a cell. Alone. Forgotten. Everything you built, gone. Everyone you controlled, freed. And your name will be remembered as the con man who almost got away with it. Almost. The FBI dragged him away. And Olivia collapsed. The adrenaline that had kept her standing for 96 straight hours finally ran out. Rebecca caught her. It's over. But Olivia shook her head. No. It's not. Because 3,000 miles away, in a federal prison in Oregon, an inmate named Thomas Brenner was receiving a message on a smuggled cell phone. Thomas had been Whitmore's first partner 22 years ago. His mentor. His teacher. And he'd just been released on parole. The message read, it's time. Destroy Olivia Brennan. Leave nothing. 9 months passed like a dream Olivia couldn't quite believe was real. Jackson Whitmore's trial became the biggest financial crime case in a decade. National news covered every detail. The courtroom was packed every single day. Prosecutors presented 17 years of evidence, every victim, every crime, every lie exposed under courtroom lights. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Found him guilty on all 47 counts. The judge sentenced him to 48 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Olivia's name was cleared. Not just legally, publicly. Every news outlet that had called her a criminal ran corrections. Apologies. Features about the wrongfully accused analyst who took down a serial predator. Sterling Technologies made her head of security and ethics. Corner office on the 42nd floor. 6-figure salary. Designer suits. Respect from people who once wouldn't have looked at her twice. She had everything back. Her career. Her reputation. Her freedom. Her name. But something was missing. Late at night, She still woke up in cold sweats, heart racing, convinced the FBI was breaking down her door. She still checked exits everywhere she went. Still carried a burner phone. Still moved through the world like someone who'd learned the hard way that safety was an illusion. She had everything back. But she didn't feel whole. The first attack came on a Tuesday morning. A $30 million contract Sterling had been negotiating for 3 months collapsed overnight. The client pulled out with no explanation. Just gone. Olivia thought it was bad luck. Business happened this way sometimes. Then it happened again. And again. 3 deals in 2 weeks, all falling apart at the last second. Then the stock drop. Sterling's share price plummeted 18% in a single day after an anonymous whistleblower report claimed massive fraud. The report was fake, completely fabricated, but the damage was done before they could prove it. Olivia analyzed the attack code used to spread the fake report. Her blood went cold. This wasn't random. This was her program. The exact fraud detection software she'd built with Derek 7 years ago. The code that only 3 people in the world knew inside and out, her, Derek, and Jackson Whitmore. But Whitmore was in prison. And Derek was working alongside her. So who was using her program to destroy her? The answer came in an anonymous email at 3:47 a.m. Whitmore sends his regards from cell block D. You took his freedom. I'm taking your future. T.B. David Chen identified the sender within hours. Thomas Brenner. 73 years old. Whitmore's original partner from the 1990s. The man who'd taught Whitmore everything he knew. Served 15 years for securities fraud, released on parole 4 months ago. Just when you thought it was over, right? That's what makes these stories so addictive. If you're loving this journey, make sure you're subscribed because I have more stories just like this coming soon. Drop a comment. Do you think Olivia can beat Thomas, or has she finally met her match? The finale is about to blow your mind. And then Olivia realized something that made her stomach drop. Thomas Brenner wasn't just Whitmore's teacher. He was the original architect. The man who wrote the fraud detection code 25 years ago. The program Olivia thought she'd created from scratch. She'd been rebuilding Thomas's work the whole time without knowing it. Every line of code, every algorithm, every detection pattern, it was all his. And now he was using it to systematically destroy everything she'd built. Sterling's executive team assembled for an emergency meeting. The numbers were catastrophic. $250 million lost per week. Share price in freefall. Major investors pulling out. Board members panicking. The board chair delivered the ultimatum: fire Olivia Brennan immediately. She was toxic. Everything she touched turned to disaster. Every company she worked for got destroyed. First Vanguard Capital Partners 3 years ago, now Sterling Technologies. The pattern was obvious. Nathan Cross stood up. Looked every board member in the eye. Said 3 words that changed everything. We don't abandon family. The board chair threatened his position. Said they'd vote him out. Cross didn't blink. Told them to try. He owned 32% of voting shares. Rebecca owned another 15%. Together they controlled the company. And Olivia stayed. Rebecca leaned forward. We don't play defense anymore. We go on offense. The question was, how do you fight an enemy who knows your every move before you make it? Olivia stared at the financial attack patterns on the screen. Studied them for hours. Days. Looking for weaknesses. And then she saw it. Thomas was brilliant. But he was also predictable. He'd been using the same pattern for 25 years, identify the target's vulnerabilities, exploit them, wait for panic, then strike when they were weakest. He expected her to fight back. Expected desperate defensive moves. Expected fear. So she'd give him exactly what he expected. For 2 weeks, Sterling would make small, predictable trades. Defensive positions. Scared decisions. They'd look weak. Panicked. Defeated. Derek understood immediately. They weren't defending. They were training Thomas. Teaching him their patterns. Making him confident. The bait, Sterling would announce they were selling their $9 billion stake in Helix Biotech. Make it look like panic selling. Desperation. The company bleeding out. Thomas would short the stock. Bet everything he had that Helix's price would crash. Put billions on the line because he'd smell blood in the water. And then Sterling would announce the merger. Helix and Sterling joining forces in a $15 billion deal. The stock wouldn't fall. It would explode upward. And Thomas's short position would become catastrophic. Market close, 30 minutes. Olivia gave the signal. One word, now. Rebecca released the press statement. Helix Biotech and Sterling Technologies merge in landmark deal. The stock went vertical. Up 20% in 90 seconds. Then 30. Then 45. On the screen, they watched Thomas Brenner's offshore accounts drain in real time. His short position went from profitable to disastrous. At 3:59 p.m., 1 minute before market close, his net worth hit zero. At 4 p.m., it went negative. Negative $2.6 billion. He owed money he'd never be able to pay. His phone rang. FBI. His parole officer had been CC'd on every illegal trade for 2 weeks. He was going back to prison. This time for life. But Olivia wasn't celebrating. Because she'd learned something in 3 years of running, 9 months of fighting, and one final victory. Winning didn't erase what she'd lost. Victory tasted like ashes when you'd lost 3 years you'd never get back. Late that night, Olivia stood alone on Sterling Tower's rooftop. 42 stories above Chicago. City lights stretching to the horizon. Cold November wind cutting through her jacket. She held a paper coffee cup, the cheap kind from gas stations, not the expensive stuff from the executive floor. Old habits died hard. The elevator dinged behind her. Nathan Cross stepped out, followed by Rebecca, Derek, and David. Cross carried a bottle of champagne. Rebecca carried something else. A paper cup. Coffee. From Pinnacle Steakhouse. Rebecca handed it to Olivia without a word. Olivia took it. Smelled it. The same cheap brew she'd served for 3 years while hiding in plain sight. Thought you might want the real thing, Rebecca said quietly. Nathan Cross opened the champagne. Poured glasses for everyone except Olivia, who stayed with her coffee. The board voted this morning, he said. Unanimously this time. You're not just head of security anymore. He pulled out a document. Partnership agreement. 8% equity. Your name goes on the building. Full partner. Equal voice. You're not an employee, Olivia. You're family. That's when Olivia broke. 3 years of holding everything together. 3 years of being strong because breaking meant dying. 3 years of swallowing fear and rage and grief. It all came out at once. She collapsed. Rebecca caught her. Held her while she sobbed. I don't know how to be her anymore, Olivia said through tears. The prodigy everyone believed in. I don't know how to stop being afraid. I don't know how to stop checking exits and sleeping with lights on and jumping at shadows. Rebecca's voice was gentle. Then don't be her. Be someone new. Olivia looked out at Chicago. The city where she'd hidden. The city where she'd survived. The city where she'd won. When I was Olivia Brennan the first time, I was defined by my potential, she said quietly. Then I became Elena Grant, defined by my trauma. Now. She took a breath. Now I'm the woman who checks everything twice because I know the cost of blind trust. I'm the woman who survived 3 years and came back stronger. I'm the woman who saved 11 people from my fate. I'm not a prodigy. I'm not a victim. I'm a warrior. And that's enough. Northwestern University, 1 year later. Olivia stood at a podium in front of 200 graduate students studying finance and computer science. She'd founded the Second Chances Initiative, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping wrongfully convicted financial professionals rebuild their lives. Legal aid, job placement, mental health support. Everything she wished had existed for her 3 years ago. 7 of Whitmore's 11 victims now worked at Sterling Technologies. Patricia Lawson had turned state's evidence, served 18 months, and now ran the initiative's legal division. Maya Torres headed the counseling program. Even Gerald Hammond, after serving his sentence, joined the ethics training team. Michael Whitley, Whitmore's son, ran Sterling's ethics division. He'd spent a year in therapy, rebuilt his relationship with his company, and dedicated himself to preventing the kind of corruption his father had created. Derek Mitchell and Olivia had finally finished their fraud detection software. Not for private companies this time. For the SEC. For federal prosecutors. For investigators hunting the next Jackson Whitmore before he could destroy his first victim. The program was being used nationwide. Saving lives. Preventing crimes. Making the system just a little bit harder to exploit. Olivia had everything she'd lost, plus things she'd never dreamed of having. Success. Purpose. A chosen family that included Rebecca, Derek, David, Nathan, and a growing network of survivors who refused to stay broken. But there was one more thing she needed to do. One final piece of closure. Federal Correctional Institution, Terre Haute, Indiana. Olivia sat across from Jackson Whitmore in the visitation room. He'd aged 20 years and 12 months. Gray hair now white. Expensive confidence replaced by prison-issue jumpsuit and exhaustion. Why are you here? His voice was hollow. To say thank you. He looked confused. For what? For teaching me that brilliance without integrity is just another con, Olivia said. For showing me exactly who I never want to become. You gave me the greatest gift. I'll never turn into you. I'll never sacrifice people for profit. I'll never believe my intelligence gives me the right to destroy others. She stood. You spent 30 years building an empire of lies. I'll spend the rest of my life building something honest. And when people remember this story, they won't remember the genius who almost got away with it. They'll remember the waitress who brought him down. She walked away. Didn't look back. Pinnacle Steakhouse, Chicago. Full circle. Olivia walked through the doors she'd walked through 1,000 times as Elena Grant. But this time she wasn't wearing a server's uniform. She was wearing confidence. She sat at table 14. The power table. The place where Nathan Cross had mocked her 18 months ago. A young waitress approached, nervous. First time here? Olivia smiled. No. I used to work here. Long time ago. Oh. What do you do now? I make sure people like me get second chances. They thought she was just a waitress. They forgot that the woman serving coffee might be the smartest person in the room. They forgot that survival is its own kind of genius. And they forgot that empires built on lies always fall, and the people who bring them down are often the ones nobody saw coming. What a journey. From waitress to warrior, Olivia Brennan proved that empires built on lies always fall. If this story moved you, inspired you, or kept you glued to your screen for the last hour, please hit that like button and subscribe to Letters of the Heart. We bring you stories of underdogs who refuse to stay down every single week. In the comments, tell me, what was your favorite moment from this story? The restaurant confrontation? The hard drive reveal? The final trap? I want to hear from you.